That wretched woman thought she could crush you with cheap witchcraft, with poison disguised as laughter, with memes that had your face on them and curses shared between laughs in a WhatsApp group. Yeah, because this wasn't just any betrayal. It was a premeditated, energetic ambush where more than 5 people joined in to symbolically bury you under salt, mockery, and loose-tongued spells. They thought technology made them untouchable, that sending a hate-filled message from a cell phone wouldn't trigger anything, that they didn't know they were messing with a man who was protected by the invisible shield of St. Michael. They didn't know you had already been marked by a light that never goes out. And that filth they threw at you, through their words, their eyes, their disguised insults, it never touched you. It fell to the ground, and from there, it started to cook up their punishment. Because what they activated was collective karma, an inverted energetic binding spell. They brought it on themselves. They sat in that chat room like they were convening a war council, thinking they were just playing with your image, your energy, your destiny. But they weren't alone. There were entities listening. There were guardian angels who had been keeping a record of that group for a while. Because you, without even knowing it, said a prayer at midnight, one of those times when your heart cries in silence and your soul calls for justice. And that prayer was heard. The Virgin of Fatima collected it and secretly gave it to Saint Gabriel. And that's when it all started to fall apart for them. One of them, the loudmouth, the one who ironically used your name the most, lost her job. Overnight. They said it was a layoff, but it was really one wrong word said to the wrong person. What she doesn't know is that it was her own tongue that cost her an income. Another one, the guy who sent the edited pictures making fun of you, ended up in the hospital. It started with nightmares, then seizures. Medically, there's no explanation. He just repeats your name in his dreams as if something is chasing him from the other side. And one more was abandoned by his partner, his friends, his own shadow. He feels alone even when he's surrounded by people. He says everything is falling apart, that nothing goes right, and he doesn't understand why. But you know why. That group they created became an altar of misfortune. And now each one of them is paying the price of admission. Comment now. If you feel this in your chest with this phrase, I declare that everyone who played with my name will fall under the judgment of the light. Write it, because St. Michael is reading it. And if you hit like right now, you will open an energetic channel that allows your name to be safeguarded by the celestial altars. That way, the universe will know you are awake, and divine justice can work without interference. Because anyone who messes with a soul that has been protected by the sacred veil of the Virgin ends up facing consequences they couldn't even imagine in their wildest dreams. No burial spell, no hex, no meme, no word can overcome the protection that was granted to you from the womb. And that protection is already activated. But there's something stronger, because one of the members of that cursed group wasn't just an accomplice. She was a direct perpetrator, and has something of yours, something she stole, something that belongs to your energy. And the worst part is, she tried to use it in a forbidden ritual, not knowing she was waking the sleeping serpent of the hidden threshold. And that's where the real punishment begins. She swallowed the salt she threw at you. Yes, the very same salt she hurled at you with her words. Her dirty rituals done in secret with black candles and dolls stitched with someone else's hair. That salt she spat with hate disguised as a joke is now rotting her tongue from the inside out, and she can't even digest her own life. You don't need to do a thing. Just watch, because everything she sent out has already come back like a boomerang from the lower astral plane. But it didn't just come back. It came back amplified. What was a joke transformed into black vomit? What was a poisonous hint on social media turned into panic attacks that jolt her out of bed screaming? What seemed like a shared laugh among treacherous friends ended in endless nightmares, where she appears chained inside an abandoned church, her mouth sealed shut, and her hands tied with threads of human hair. And nobody understands. The doctors say she's stressed, that it could be psychosomatic. But you know what it is. You feel it. She was marked by her own spiritual burials. She opened that door herself. And now she can't close it, because she played with your energy like it was trash, not knowing she was touching an ancestral fire. The angels saw everything. Saint Gabriel wrote it down in the book of invisible judgment. Saint Michael unsheathed his sword in silence, and the Virgin of Fatima descended one night in secret to cover you with her mantle, while the protections she thought she had were stripped away from her. She was left alone, spiritually naked, at the mercy of the entities she herself had summoned. Because you don't throw salt without consequences. Because you don't perform binding spells out of envy without paying the price. And now, she's paying. Comment now if you feel it in your chest. Everything they sent me is returned 1,000 times more in the name of divine justice. Write it. Because this phrase has the power to activate the channel of spiritual judgment. Hit like if you want Saint Michael to close the circle of return and protect your energy on every plane. And subscribe so your name will be written in the book of safeguarded souls. Just as you came across this message, others will too, and will be touched by the invisible hand of redemption. But there's more, because while she's writhing in her bed, tied up by the threads of her own spells, you started to feel a strange vibration. In your chest, a sign, a premonition you can't place. Because she wasn't the only one who threw witchcraft at you. There's another one, quieter, more deceitful. And this one didn't just throw salt. She stole something you were wearing. She went to a cemetery to bury you. She did it in silence, thinking. No one was watching. On a moonless night, dressed in black, her eyes wide with hatred, she crept into the holy ground like a shadow that had no business treading there. She stole dirt from a freshly opened grave. With that hot earth, full of invisible screams and the laments of the unresting, she prepared a burial for you. Yes. She wrote your name, wrapped it in red threads, stuck it with pins, rotten urine, and even moldy food scraps. She wanted you to rot from the inside, to writhe in pain, to break without knowing why. She thought that would bring you to your knees, but what she didn't know is that the earth didn't recognize you, because you walk with the Virgin of Fatima as your shield, because your steps are guided by the angel Gabriel, who crossed his wings just as your name was about to touch that soil. And the earth responded, but not in her favor. That very same night, someone in her house began to tremble. A very close family member fell to their knees in the bathroom, eyes rolled back, mouth clamped shut as if their soul had been sewn up. They said it was an accident, but you know it was the echo of the burial, bouncing back with fury. What was meant for you was returned to her, but with hunger. The earth didn't want your spirit. It preferred to take one of her own. And now she lives in fear. She doesn't sleep. She doesn't eat. She's afraid the next thing to show up at her door will be an obituary with her own name on it. You haven't had to lift a finger. Justice moved. For you, because your guardian angels are activated. Because your spirit is no longer the same. Because the very thing that tried to destroy you is now eating away at the walls of her soul from the inside. If you feel you've been the target of burials, binding spells, or cemetery witchcraft, declare right now in the comments. What was sent against me returns to its origin, multiplied by 1,000. And the angel Gabriel closes that dark circle forever. Write it with conviction. Because when you do, you activate a spiritual barrier. Hit like if this message shook you to your core, and subscribe now because Saint Michael is asking you to. And only those on this channel will be protected in this new, invisible war that has just begun. Let no one else steal your power. Let no one else play with your destiny. But listen closely to what comes next, because what happened to that family member was just the beginning of the punishment. Someone in her most intimate circle started dreaming about you. They see you standing at the foot of their bed, your eyes glowing without saying a single word. And the detail that gives them no peace is that in the dream, you have a flaming rosary hanging from your neck. A rosary you've never physically owned, but now it appears. And that will be the next part. Because that rosary they see isn't just any symbol. It's an ancient seal borne only by those protected by Fatima, and the warriors sealed by Saint Michael. And the day you discover this, they will never have another moment of peace. This astral tick, this two-legged rat, had no idea what else to do to bring you down. She had tried burials, salt, cemetery dirt, and insults disguised as smiles. Nothing worked, so she went straight to the lowest of the low, seeking out a warlock, who works in basements, the kind that buries live toads and uses human bones in his work. She wanted to bind you with violence, to break you spiritually, so you would crawl and be unable to even lift your head. She said it just like that, bluntly. I want him to have no peace day or night, for his soul to fall apart piece by piece. But she made the biggest mistake of all. She paid to have your energy tampered with, not knowing you are already sealed. Not by just anything, not by common prayers. You were sealed by the burning shield of the Virgin of Fatima, and surrounded by the crossed swords of Saint Michael. And whoever tries to break that seal bites directly into the edge of their own destruction. What happened next was chilling. The warlock, with over 30 years of experience doing heavy-duty dark magic, was found dead the next morning, lying on the floor, his eyes wide open, his tongue bitten as if he had tried to swallow his own words, and his hands clenched so tight. It looked like he was trying to fight something he couldn't see. They said it was a heart attack, that those who know the occult world know that was a spiritual rebound. What he tried to send out bounced off your shield with such force that it knocked him straight into the next plane. And from that day on, her life came crashing down. She doesn't talk about it. She denies it. She pretends everything is normal, but she can't hold a gaze. Her hands tremble. She started having memory blackouts. She gets lost inside her own house, turns off the lights because she feels like someone is watching her. But no one is there. Or so she thinks. Because what's haunting her now has no body. It has a conscience, and it knows what she did. She tried to mess with you, and now she carries the weight of a cursed spell that furiously bounced back. And the worst part is, that spell didn't leave with the warlock. It's still floating around her, spinning, waiting for the right moment, to devour what little soul she has left. You haven't said a word, but your angels have, because there are battles you don't fight with your hands, but with what you carry inside. And you carry an invisible pact with the celestial guardians, the same ones who won't let a single hair on your spirit be touched. If you've also felt like you've been attacked from the darkness, write in the comments right now. My energy is sealed with light, and no binding spell can touch me because angels surround me. Don't think about it. Write it and open the connection. Saint Michael is already cleansing your surroundings, and Saint Gabriel is carrying your words directly to the higher plane. Hit like if you're feeling that this is no coincidence, and subscribe because this channel is consecrated as a shield against all buried or sent witchcraft. And listen carefully, because here comes the next blow that no one saw coming. Since that warlock died, she started talking to herself in the early morning, but not like someone who's lost their mind. It's as if someone is speaking to her, and she's just responding to orders. The last thing she said in front of witnesses, in a cracked voice, was this: I've tried everything. But I can't get to him. He has a rosary of fire that burns my thoughts. Where is this rosary of fire coming from that no one else sees, but that burns her from the inside? The guides are asking me to reveal this next. That rosary exists. The guides are telling me to say it. I can't keep this in. They're not whispering it to me. They're shouting it. For me to verbalize it, to channel it. Because what happened that day was an irreparable spiritual mistake. She, in her sickest desperation, did what no soul with a conscience should ever dare to do. She posed as you in a forbiddance ritual. It wasn't just a simple spell. It was a clandestine ceremony of spiritual impersonation. She brought a photo of you that she stole back when you didn't even know she was watching you. She gave your full name, your date of birth, and even painted a mark on her arm identical to one you have, thinking she could confuse the spirits that way. But what she opened wasn't a path. It was an abyss. The warlock, who was already in way over his head with things even he couldn't control, told her the energy felt strange, that something wasn't responding, and that when he invoked your details, an entity entered and stayed there. She thought it was part of the process, until days later she started talking in her sleep in voices that weren't hers. Then she stopped sleeping. Then she stopped coming back to herself. Now they find her walking barefoot on streets she doesn't remember, muttering prayers backward with dilated pupils and bruises on her neck, as if something invisible is holding her down at night. In her own home, no one wants to take care of her anymore. They say she started laughing to herself, that she locks herself in the bathroom for hours to draw symbols with her own blood, and that when they call her by her name, she answers with, "Yours." But you haven't moved from your center, because you didn't enter the ritual. You didn't cross the threshold. She did it for you, and what she opened has not been closed. That door wasn't meant for you, and for that very reason you are protected. Your aura remained firm. Your channel is shielded. Your shield is intact. Do you know why? Because you have a contract with the heavens, with beings of light who do not allow impersonations, cheap imitations, or contaminated energies. And when someone tries to forge your essence, what they receive is an infestation, not of demons, but of dimensional fractures that shatter their soul into pieces. The comments if this resonates with you. Right now. No one can use my name because my identity is sacred and sealed by the fire of Saint Gabriel. Write it now. And with that, you will activate the channel of protection that your guides want you to keep open. Hit like if you feel this truth has touched your spirit, and subscribe because Saint Michael himself has brought you here to confirm that your soul is under protection. This channel is already functioning as a reverse portal that returns all evil to its origin. But listen to this. In the last few days, she has started writing phrases she doesn't understand in languages she never learned. And the most disturbing part is that every time she falls asleep, she wakes up with black letters marked on her body. One of those marks spelled out a name that not even the warlock could pronounce. A name that, according to the records of certain cursed books, only manifests when someone becomes trapped in a portal of no return. That name is the name of the entity that is now looking for the original person from the ritual. You. And yes, it is walking, and it is coming in your direction. Those phrases she started writing with desperation, without understanding them, unable to stop, weren't just simple scribbles or the delusions of a broken mind. No, they were dictated by an entity that doesn't communicate with human words, but with archaic symbols that carry vibrations from another plane. And it all started to make sense the night the Virgin of Fatima appeared to her. She saw her standing, illuminated by a glow so powerful it burned her closed eyes. She tried to scream, wanted to curse, wanted to throw another hex at you, but the Virgin wouldn't allow it. She was silenced. her mouth sealed with a white ribbon that wasn't cloth. It was condensed light. Since then, every time she tries to speak ill of you, something in her throat gets blocked. She feels as if she's being strangled from the great beyond, as if invisible hands are squeezing her neck with force. The message was crystal clear. You are not to be played with because you are under divine jurisdiction. You have been spiritually tied to a network of protection that not even the most experienced in the dark arts dare to break. And while she trembles at the sound of your name, you continue to rise. Because you didn't make deals with shadows. You sealed your soul with angels. You have a shield that is being reinforced at this very moment by the Archangel Gabriel. And right now, as you're listening to this, he is placing a crown of white fire on your head that repels all evil sent in secret. Every burial done in the dead of night, every binding spell that used your blood or your name. That's why I'm telling you, if these words are making you vibrate, if you feel a current in your body that you can't explain, decree now in the comments. My voice is protected. My name is sacred, and Saint Gabriel has sealed my essence. Write it, and that simple act will open the connection with your guardians. Hit like if you felt that pressure in your chest release, and subscribe because Saint Michael is pushing you to be part of this channel, which is functioning as an energetic beacon for awakened souls, as an activation switch for those who are ready to stop running and start facing what's ahead. But listen closely, because the worst has not yet been told. No one has been able to fully decipher the phrases she wrote. Until a retired monk in a convent, no one enters any more identified a word that repeats with exact patterns, like an echo trapped between dimensions. That word, according to him, doesn't belong to any known language, but it appears in the sealed pages of a grimoire that was buried in the cemetery of the exorcists for over 100 years. And what it revealed is so chilling that you'll need to prepare yourself for what comes next, because that name should not be pronounced by any human being. And yet, she screamed it, and unknowingly tattooed it on herself. And now, she is no longer herself. And what happened next was so grotesque, so abrupt, so beyond all human logic, that not even the biggest skeptics have been able to explain it. From one day to the next, that woman, the same one who messed with you, who threw salt at you, who dared to speak your name in cursed rituals, began to deform. Not physically at first, not with sores or visible wounds, but in a much crueler way. Her energy began to rot from the inside. Something got into her eyes, her skin, her way of speaking. And then, what she never imagined happened. Her partner, the same one who looked at you with contempt, who blocked you, who talked behind your back as if you were an annoying shadow, had a dream about you. And in that dream, you appeared dressed in white. You were walking between columns of fire without getting burned. In your hands, you held a rosary that dripped light, and behind you, a figure rose. An angel, but not just any angel. It was Saint Michael, with his sword plunged into the earth, and his eyes glowing like living coals. He woke up soaked in sweat, but not from fear, from a peace he couldn't comprehend. And from that day on, he began to change. Without a fight, without explanations, without drama. He simply pulled away from her. He told her he felt something in the dream that broke him, that the light had filled him from within, and that without knowing how or why, you had gotten stuck in his soul. The strange thing is, it wasn't love that he felt. It was redemption. It was as if his conscience had been invaded by a truth he had been resisting for years. And when she realized it, she lost her mind even more, because she had lost everything. Love, her looks, her sanity. For messing with you, she became something unrecognizable. Now, not even her own shadow follows her. Plants wither where she sits. Dogs bark at her even when she does nothing. There's something about her that repels life. Because when you play with burials, with binding spells, with rituals from fake warlocks who open portals and promise revenge, what you summon doesn't always leave. And you, in the meantime, keep shining, because your name is safeguarded in the psalms that Saint Gabriel repeats before your energetic altar, the one that activates every time someone decrees they are protected. So if you're listening to this and you feel that heat rising up the back of your neck, it's because your guides are touching your aura. Comment: my halo is invisible but powerful, and my soul was reclaimed by the good. Write it, and Saint Michael will seal this affirmation with a force that will break any ancestral chain. Hit like if you feel that someone is finally saying what your spirit already knew, and subscribe, because you are signing up for this network of awakened souls who are being called, one, by the angels of judgment. Nobody saw this coming. After all that chaos, after losing everything and being left with nothing, she went back to the same warlock. She found him more haggard, stranger. He told her that ever since he did that work against you, something has been following him, and he can't sleep. But he still agreed to see her again and propose something stronger, darker, more definitive. He told her about a ritual done not with salt, but with blood. And he asked for the most unthinkable thing. And what that warlock asked of her was so perverse, so splattered with darkness, that not even the shadows dared to listen to everything he said in a low voice. Because it wasn't a simple ritual. Not another binding spell disguised with black candles and false words. This time, he demanded an object that shouldn't even belong to her. He required a piece of clothing with your sweat on it, a recently taken photograph of you, and a sample of an innocent person's blood. Yes, what I'm telling you is not an exaggeration. The ritual he wanted to perform feeds on corrupted innocence, on pacts that involve not just bodies, but souls that are not yet stained. Because this type of witchcraft doesn't work on the earthly plane. This is from the underworld. And as unbelievable as it sounds, she didn't hesitate. She went to the house of someone close to you, took what she needed without anyone noticing, and returned to the warlock's den. There, surrounded by inverted crosses, drawings made with the saliva of the dead, and cemetery dirt, they began the work. The symbolic burial was done with a doll that represented your body. They filled it with rusty pins, trapped beetles, and plucked hairs. Every word they uttered was a desperate attempt to break the protection that surrounds you. But they didn't count on something. They didn't know that while they were opening dark portals, you were being wrapped in the wings of your guardian angel. Saint Michael appeared without you even calling him, because he had already marked you as divinely protected. He felt the astral shift, felt the shaking of your shield, and descended. Not with a sword, but with fire. The warlock's altar burst into flames for no reason. The candles melted instantly, and the chants turned into screams of desperation. Seeing this, she tried to run, but it was too late. Because by making a pact with that entity, she signed away the most precious thing she had, her inner voice with her own breath. Since then, she hasn't been able to sleep. She dreams that you are watching her from a mirror, speaking to her with a mouth that doesn't move. She feels that every time she closes her eyes, your reflection haunts her, but not with hatred, judgment. And you don't even know it. You go on with your life, not seeking revenge, not wishing ill on anyone. But that's what hurts her the most, that your light burns bright without needing a flame. And that light is what's burning her from the inside out. If you feel that what you're hearing is more than just a story, if your skin has goosebumps and your chest has trembled, decree right now in the comments, I am untouchable because heaven has my back. Write it without fear, because in doing so, Saint Gabriel will open a new channel of vision within you. You're not just writing it by chance. You're activating it. And if this resonated with you, it's because there are forces working in your favor. Hit like to seal this truth with energy, and subscribe if you're ready to discover how far your light can reach in the midst of someone else's swamp. But listen to this. After everything they tried, the warlock disappeared. No one has seen him again. His den was found empty, but with a note stuck to the wall. A single word written in black, ink that seemed to move. A word that no one has been able to read aloud without breaking down. Do you know what that word was? It was your name. But not as you know it. It was your name in its ancestral form. The one only the angels know. And what that name means is what I will reveal to you shortly. Because that word was not human. It was revealed by something that should never have been awakened. And it was in that instant, just as they tried to pronounce your true name, the one not found in documents or records, the one only celestial entities know, that the atmosphere changed. A cracking sound was heard from beneath the ground, as if something had broken in the core of the astral plane. Because what they didn't know is that your name was sealed with an archangelic code, engraved on an invisible scroll that only Saint Gabriel guards. Every syllable that came out of their mouths was a blasphemy, a direct offense to the celestial throne. And that's why, by trying to invoke you, they unintentionally activated a spiritual judgment, not against you, but against themselves. From that moment on, every mirror in the house where they performed that act began to shatter, one by one, not from the outside, but from within, as if an invisible presence was bursting them. The water in the flower vases turned black. The dog that always barked for no reason fell silent. And the most terrifying part was that on the floor where they did the symbolic burial with the doll, mold began to grow in the shape of a spiral, like a seal being burned from the other side. Because you are not alone. You are protected by ancient guardians, angels that don't appear in books or statues, but who exist and have promised to protect you with fury and without mercy. You didn't ask for this spiritual war, but heaven decided. You were worthy of being covered with wings of fire. And that's why, if you feel something stirring inside you, if your soul has vibrated with this revelation, right now in the comments, my name is written in the archives of heaven. By doing so, Saint Michael will activate a spiral of protection in your environment, and no burial or binding spell will ever be able to touch you again. This isn't just a message. It's an energetic key that you are turning with your intention. Hit like to seal this movement of light, and subscribe if you've already understood that your presence here is not a coincidence, but because you are waking up at the exact right moment. One of the attendees of that ritual, a silent accomplice who only watched from the shadows, began to have visions. Not dreams, waking visions. He said that every time he blinks, he sees a hooded figure sitting at the foot of his bed, holding a set of scales, and on the scales are your face and hers. And the figure whispers the same thing to him every night. One will fall for what the other ignored. But the most chilling part of all is that the voice he hears is not human. It's the voice of someone who was buried over 100 years ago, and who was mistakenly invoked during that ritual. But before we continue, I'm being told to tell you what happened when your name was mentioned, for no logical reason, during a mass, in a church where you hadn't set foot in years. It was one of those masses where you can barely hear the sighs, where the incense sticks to your bones, and the candles flicker even when there's no wind. The priest, interrupting his own homily, stopped, looked at the ceiling as if he had received a coded message, and spoke words that chilled the blood of those present. There is someone here who is being protected by the Virgin of Fatima. They have been attacked, but not touched. They have been cursed, but not harmed. They have been buried in words, but resurrected in spirit. No one knew why he said that. No one understood who he was referring to. But you did. Because that phrase traveled directly to you through a friend who went to church that day on a strange gut feeling. The same friend who felt she should light a white candle for you before she left. The same one who sent you an audio message with a trembling voice, telling you what happened. Because you weren't there physically, but your energy was. And that only happens to those who are marked with an invisible seal. That kind of manifestation doesn't happen by coincidence. It happens because of celestial pressure. Your guides are moving invisible pieces, making even priests feel your presence without knowing you, so that the whole world understands, even if they don't say it out loud, that you are not to be played with, that no one messes with you without paying the price. And if you've made it this far, it's not by accident. It's because something in you has begun to awaken. There are codes within your DNA that are reconnecting with your spiritual lineages. And if you feel the call, decree right now in the comments, I am protected by the light of Fatima and by the judgment of Saint Michael. That will activate the channel of fire that separates what belongs to you from what should not touch you. Hit like if you feel this word has resonated with you, and subscribe so that Saint Gabriel can seal this invisible pact with you that is renewing your path. Only those with old souls will know that this isn't entertainment. It's a disguised revelation. And now, listen to what no one expected. That mass wasn't just any mass. When the priest who celebrated it got home, he found a letter on his pillow, an old sheet of paper that smelled of wax and dampness, written in an ink that looked like dried blood. On it was a single sentence written in Latin, which he later translated. You have mentioned one who should not have been exposed. They already know. That very night, 3 lights hovered over the roof of the parish. They weren't drones, they weren't birds. They were not of this world. A security camera captured them. But upon reviewing the video, all that can be seen is a silhouette with dark wings circling, as if it were standing guard. One of the attendees of that mass, an elderly woman who always sits in the 3rd row, began to speak in a language she had never learned. It was recognized as a dead tongue, a language used in ancient exorcism rituals that were banned centuries ago. And what she said was so chilling that the recording was confiscated by the bishop himself. In the next video, I will tell you, word for word, what that old woman said, and why you are the reason that language was reactivated after being dormant for entire generations. Because what has been awakened is not a war. It's a prophecy, and you are at the center of it.